Okay.
Okay. All righty, everybody. Here in person and joining us virtually. I am going to call the July 23, 2024 Landmark Preservation Commission meeting to order. It is 1 p.m. So let us get going. Generally what we do at the beginning of every meeting is introduce ourselves, and I will go first since I'm already talking. My name is Julie Johnson, and I am a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Chris, can you start?
My name is Christopher McInnes. I was appointed by the mayor's office, and I'm a forensic architect. Kind of specializes in historic preservation.
I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and a developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Rusty Brown, and I'm an architect and was also nominated by AIA.
I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant nominated by the community at large.
I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement nominated by History Colorado.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Before we get going, some of you are joining us virtually, so let me go over a few tips to make it a little easier for you. For better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom if you haven't already on your desktop, laptop, tablet, or mobile device. You can click audio settings to bring up an additional menu, add a background noise suppression, test your speaker and microphone, adjust their maximum output volumes. For presenters or public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you click on the microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. Expanding the menu next to the microphone will reveal additional options like select your speaker and microphone devices and test your microphone and speakers, and you can adjust their maximum output volumes. If you still have audio challenges, switch to the phone for audio. Alrighty, the first order of business is the meeting records for approval for July 9. I will need to recuse myself since I was not present at that meeting. But if anybody would, any comments from anyone who was here, any changes? All right, can I get a motion from the floor?
I'll move to approve the meeting records for July 9th, 2024 as presented.
Erica, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nick has seconded it. All in favor, aye, of approval, aye?
Aye.
All right, they have been approved as presented. Thank you very much, staff. All right, the public comment period is next. We reserve this time at the beginning of every meeting for the public that might have comments in historic preservation in general. These, anyone who would like to make a general comment will have up to 2 minutes for the comment. And if you want to comment on a design review project that we're seeing later in the agenda, there will be time to do that, but this is just historic preservation in Denver in general, if you'd like to make a comment. If you're joining us virtually, you can click on the hand raise button in Zoom. You can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either of these options. Anybody here wish to make a comment? It does not look like it. Anybody online? No. Okay, all righty. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda are routine design items recommended for commission approval without discussion. Applicants with items passed on the consent agenda should coordinate separately with Landmark Preservation staff that they've been working with to receive their certificate of appropriateness. There is no public comment for anything on the consent agenda. I will announce the consent agenda projects by address and ask the commissioners to, if they want to remove any of the items, if they have questions or concerns. Commission members will also announce any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest. The commission will then make a motion and vote. And just so you all know, and this goes for design review as well, the Landmark Preservation Commission can only consider information that was presented to us in our application materials. We can't include any other information that came to us after that as we make this decision. So the consent agenda as it stands now is 2024-COA-418, 817 29th Street in Curtis Park, window and door replacement. The next is 2023-TAXC-010 at 2543 West 37th Avenue in Potter Highlands. It's a tax credit application. And the last is 2024-TAXC-001 at 170 North Marion in the Country Club District, another tax application. Okay, first of all, does anybody any commissioners want to take anything off of the agenda? Okay, doesn't look like it. Any conflicts of interest in the ex parte? No, okay, great. Do I hear a motion from the floor? George?
Madam Chair, I'd like to propose the approval of the consent agenda as read.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Erica has seconded it, George and Erica. All right, all in favor of approving consent agenda as presented, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, the consent agenda has been approved. And like I mentioned before, if you are joining us virtually and you had an item on the consent agenda, you can leave the meeting now. Just get in touch with your landmark preservation staff, the person you've been working with. Of course, you are welcome to join us for the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to. You're free to go at this point. So let's go on to design review process. I will announce the design review items on the agenda in order by address. The commission members will announce any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and recommendation, and commissioners can question the staff. The applicant presentation will have up to 10 minutes to talk about the project, and commissioners can question the applicant as well. There is a public comment period after the applicant's presentation, and everybody that wishes to make a public comment will be given up to 2 minutes per person. And if you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant team, please click the hand raise button for those calling via phone. Dial *9 to raise your hand. If you are having difficulty with either the hand raise options, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. Staff will clarify if necessary. The commission will deliberate, and the commission will make a motion and vote. All right, up first is 2024-COA-421 at 735 Race Street in the East 7th Avenue District. And I understand Crystal is joining us virtually. Hi, Crystal. Okay, begin whenever you're ready.
You're muted
You're
still.
muted. We can't hear you.
There we go. That
Yes.
one?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so this is a property at 735 Race Street in the East 7th Avenue Historic District. And the property was recently rezoned to allow for a new additional dwelling unit. The applicants are proposing alterations to the primary structure that include window replacement, roof replacement, new egress windows and window wells, as well as the removal of some chimneys, addition of a skylight, and some new site work. The applicants are also proposing the demolition of the existing garage on this lot to add a new ADU at the rear of the lot. So this application has come before the commission before, and a different version was proposed and denied at the May 21st LPC meeting, just for reference. So here at the top, you can see photos of the primary structure, the historic structure, and at the bottom, just a streetscape showing the primary structure called out in orange below it. Next slide. So here you can see the proposed site plan for the current application outlined in orange, with the previous version outlined in green at the bottom. The location of the ADU will be sited at the northernmost location at the rear of the lot along the property line, in the same location as the demolished garage. The site plan also shows the location of the 2 proposed new egress window wells at the south side elevation and a new concrete patio at the rear of the structure. At the bottom, again, you can see it outlined in green, that old version. The ADU design has been changed somewhat, and will also have the footprint has been altered. So it's been enlarged from 28 feet 6 inches wide to 33 feet wide. So next we'll look at the alterations to the primary structure first before finishing up with the ADU. Next slide. So here you can see the new proposed roof for the primary structure. At the upper left corner is a historic photo of the home that the applicants found that they believe shows it was originally a shake shingle roof. You can also see that they had proposed the concrete tiles that were like flat before, but they found some shake shingle versions. So that's what they're proposing here to better match the historic look of the home. The existing roofing is asphalt shingles, which is likely not original to the structure. So the applicant is proposing to change the roof material to these concrete tiles with the shake shingle look to better replicate what they believe was the originally a shake shingle roof. Staff still has some concerns that the profile and texture of this roofing will not match design guideline 2.26C, though this version might better resemble shake shingles than the previously flat concrete tiles that were proposed. And then the new ADU will also have these concrete tiles, and only the ADU will have the solar panel add-on that you can see here at the bottom. Next slide. So here on the left side of the screen is the front facade of the primary structure. The only change being proposed here is to remove a small portion of the chimney. And on the right, you can see proposed changes to the rear elevation that include removing 2 original windows and some basement windows and adding a new patio and door, as well as a new skylight and a cooler on the roof. So staff is supportive of changes at the rear elevation as they will not be visible from public vantage points. Next slide. And then here you can see the side elevations of the primary structure. So here on the bottom left side, you can see proposed changes to add 2 new ingress windows and window wells. Design guideline 2.18 states to locate and design a new egress window to be as inconspicuous as possible and align new basement egress window or expansions of an existing egress window with other egress windows and features on the facade. So the new basement egress windows do not meet 2.18B, which states to align and expand these basement egress windows with existing ones or other windows on a facade. So staff has concerns there and would recommend the applicant align the new egress windows with the windows above, matching the existing basement windows. And then here you can also see at the north elevation, the addition of 2 new smaller windows while retaining original windows and a side door opening that'll be removed and infilled, and basement windows that'll be replaced as well. Next slide. The last, we're looking at the new proposed ADU. And then here you can see the elevation facing the primary structure on the right, and then the alley elevation on the left. The overall mass and form of the new ADU is compatible and subordinate to the historic structure. However, the roof shape of the new ADU is atypical and overly complex, as it has that inset shed portion under the main part of the roof, as you can see here on either sides of the structure. None of the district examples shown in the application have this type of roof design, which makes the ADU appear more like an addition has been added on either side rather than it being fully a new ADU. It appears this was replicated on both sides to create better symmetry for the new structure, but the inset roof portion is still not something typically seen on new ADU structures and does not appear to be well integrated into the design. Additionally, the overall footprint has increased, like I mentioned earlier, and from that 28 feet 6 inches to 33 feet wide. So the ADU now appears much wider than it did previously. So staff has concerns about that. And then at the west alley elevation here at the first floor, there's these inset portions set back from the alley on either side, which does not seem characteristic of the district. And then just for reference, I included the previous version of the ADU at the bottom outlined in green, so you could see the changes more clearly from the previous design to this design. Next slide. And then these are just the side elevations. As you can see at the northern side, it has 2 dormers on that side. And then you can more clearly see that inset from the alley at the roof portions where it insets. So as to materials, the exact proposed brick manufacturer specifications have not been provided. So it's unclear, but the applicant has mentioned that it will be a standard brick size, though the exact manufacturer specifications were not provided. So staff will request that that be added in the future, but they are proposing to paint the ADU, so integral brick color may be less important. Next slide. And then finally here, just some isometric views of the new ADU. And again, I put the inset portion from the previous design below, just so you could compare. Here you can more clearly see those insets at the alley. So staff feels that some of the changes to the primary structure still do not meet the design guidelines, and that the new ADU design still does not meet 4.19 and 4.20. Therefore, staff is still recommending denial.
So thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Crystal?
Yes, I have a question. Crystal, could you remind us of our concerns with the previous iteration of the ADU? Was it also the roof form, or?
I believe it was the roof form because of the inset portion on either side. It looks like kind of like it has wings. The last time there was only one side, which you can kind of see at the bottom, but it also had this kind of bump out to hide the ADU entrance. So I think before it was also the asymmetry of that and how both sides were kind of different and didn't really look like a cohesive design. So for us, I think with the bump outs now being on both sides, as well as inset from the alley, and then also adding the dormers, to us, it still seemed overly complex.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, Crystal, I have a question about the concrete tile for the roof, and kind of what the reservations are with that particular material if we're trying to replicate that cedar shake roof.
I think it was more just the profile and the heaviness of these large concrete tiles. You can see they added more photos, and I believe Anne is present and may have brought some roofing samples for you all. So you can maybe look at that and see if you think that better fits. But for us, I think it was like the heaviness and the profile, just not matching the historic look.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, excellent. Our applicant is here, I understand. So if you could come take a seat over here. Yep, you got it. Excellent, thank you. And then you'll have 10 minutes to tell us about your project. And at the beginning of the 10 minutes, if you could give us your name and address for our records, that would be great.
Will do. Is it okay if I just set these on the table?
Please do.
My name is Ann Cuthbertson. I'm the architect for the project. The owner is also present, Peter Pruitt, here. And for whatever it's worth, he grew up right around the corner from this house. His mother still lives on that house on 7th. So he has very deep roots with this neighborhood and is very happy to be moving back to very close to where he grew up. Let's dive into the roofing because I did name examples. Sorry.
Name and address.
Sorry, I'm at 730 North Emerson Street. Thank you. I want to just dive in with the roofing samples because there was due concern last time, and I share it, that the proposed solar panels were just too modern a look for the historic house, and we agree with that and have accepted that we will only have the roofing tiles on the ADU, the south face of the ADU. So now our search was for a product that, since no one can be insured if they put shake shingles back on a roof in Denver or probably anywhere in Colorado, for good reasons. The search was to find a product that would come as close as possible to replicating the look of the original shake shingle roof, but in a non-combustible format. So we think we have found such a product, and I will just show you what that looks like. This is what you will see is not the part where my finger is, that's if it's fastened, but it would be laid with an overlap like that. if that helps you visualize. And I'm happy to just walk around with these so people can see. I think the proportion of these would be very, very similar. Yep. And so that was also a change from the proportion of the samples or the product we were proposing last time, which would have been taller, same width but taller, where you saw the overlap. So this we believe is more, again, you will see this much of it and that much of each piece. We also think the edge detail, which will be visible at the bottom, right above the gutter line, is probably very consistent with what a shake shingle roof would have looked like. In other words, it's not a clean sawn edge. And we think this color, which will probably fade somewhat, there's a little bit of shininess to the concrete here, but probably after the first season that will go away and it will be a very matte texture, which again, we think is probably very similar to a weathered shake shingle roof. So we think this is about as good a product as we can find on the market. It also, as you can see, the ridge pieces and what will be the valley pieces are very low profile, so we don't get that same somewhat chunky appearance that you can get with modern flat concrete tile products, or for that matter, clay tile products. Sometimes the ridge can be very beefy, and in this case, it's not. So I wanted to just update you on that. I think the last time there were just concerns, which we share, about the solar tiles. And what we took from the meeting was that we should really try hard to find a product that came as close as possible to matching the original shake shingle roof, which we think we have with this product. I wanted just to address the three other things that on the staff findings were problematic. One, the egress windows on the south side. As I read the guidelines, they are to align with features on a facade. It doesn't say specifically that you need to line up with existing windows. We are centering them on the main gable, which is the prominent feature of that side of the house. In addition, they will not be visible from the street. We are proposing a new fence coming further east than the last one. So we do think we have met what we're proposing is consistent with guidelines as written. And then the brick specifications, in general, when I'm working with a house that is painted and the addition is also going to be painted brick, I just let the mason choose the brick product. So the mason has been out to the job site. He even took a brick off of the garage, which is frankly tumbling down anyway. And so he assured us that the bricks that he would be proposing for the ADU and garage would be the same size, the same visual texture. He can match the mortar spacing and the profile of the mortar. And then after all is said and done, it is going to be painted. Now I can pin him down to a specific brick manufacturer and color if you want for, if you could find that this could be approved with conditions, and that's one of the conditions, I'm happy to pin him down on that. I just don't normally, since it is intended to be painted to match the main house. Finally, on the ADU overall form, we have really worked very hard, including begging and pleading with Excel to move a telephone pole that was about 8 feet in from the south property line, and have finally, it's only taken a year, finally agreed to move that, so it will be on the property line. So that did allow us to move the ADU a little bit further to the south. We are still trying to provide off-street parking. I know that's not a zoning requirement, and it's certainly not in the design guidelines, but the owner felt that's the main thing that most neighbors would be concerned about, is that an ADU could, over time, cause parking problems on the street. And so he feels very strongly about providing the off-street parking to the south of the new ADU. We also really, I think, compromised some on the design of both ADU and the garage. And the owner is willing to accept those compromises in order to have absolute symmetry, which did seem to me from the last staff go around that was something that just really bothered people with the, not so much you guys, but the staff certainly was really upset with the asymmetry of the previous design. So we have made changes to make the new ADU rigorously symmetrical. And I will point out that the 3D views, one can never be as far away from the building as my model shows. in general, your view is gonna be coming up and down the alley or the directly across the alley. Person leaving their own garage would see a much closer in view of that. And I believe that the main perceptual facade facing the alley will be that 24-foot wide with a symmetrical gable roof, symmetrical windows, the garage door now centered on that form. And that is very consistent with both carriage houses and other ADUs in the district. What's being referred to as the shed structures on to the south side, that houses the staircase up to the ADU. And really the only way to have access to the second floor would be an exterior staircase if we are not allowed to have that small form on the south side. And in this climate, I think that's not a very practical thing to require for the owner to accept. And then on the north side, that just makes up for some loss of actual usable space within the garage to give him a storage bay on that north side. And also on the north side of our property, there is an existing garage that enters from the south side, and their driveway to get up to their garage rises up very steeply. So the grade right there at the north property line is about 2 feet higher than natural grade or the alley. If we were to remove that or pull the whole structure further to the south, we'd be left with a very strange dropped space and really an unsafe situation for that homeowner unless we built a fence, and then that would make that an even more strange little alley in between their raised driveway and the side wall, the north wall of our garage. So there's a number of reasons why we're proposing that bay on the north side. Existing topography that there would be no practical way to really ameliorate, and the symmetry that seemed very important to the staff in the last rounds of reviews.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, you're welcome, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicant?
I do.
George does.
Can you go a little further into the solarness of the roof tiles? Are they generating energy or?
They are, yes. So again, those will be only on the south face of the ADU, not on the main house. I just want to be sure everyone is crystal clear on that. They are a thin solar panel that gets applied to the surface of the concrete tile, and then they are literally all wired together and they
Okay,
generate.
So it's not those things there.
It's gonna be the same color. It'll be very similar in appearance to this, so it has to be smooth for the solar tiles to adhere to them.
Okay,
But virtually that whole south facing roof will have those solar tiles on them. I think you won't see that the tiles
and
are the same color, but not necessarily the same texture.
just on the ADU,
Only on the south face of the ADU,
south face. of the
correct?
ADU.
Yes, that's correct.
This is a small question and I apologize, I can't remember if it was part of the earlier application, but the chimney that is suggested to be removed along the roof ridge, I believe,
Yes.
on the main house. Is there a practical reason for that, removing that?
Yes, that's currently a flue for the existing boiler or furnace, whichever the HVAC is. And we are replacing the heating side with radiant flooring and on the cooling side with an evaporative cooler. So there's no longer a need for a flue coming up from the basement. It's also right in the way of where we wanted to do a Jack and Jill bathroom in the basement. So those were the two reasons why we were proposing removing the chimney all the way down.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Gentlemen? Okay. All right, Anne, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty, let's go on to our public comments for the design review. To speak, is there anybody here? There's not anybody here with projects. Click the hand raise button if you're joining us by Zoom and you'd like to make a comment. Or you can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. Or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either hand raise option. You will be given up to 2 minutes to make your comment. Taylor, do we have anybody? Doesn't look like it. No hands raised. All right. All right, thanks, Taylor. Do you have any, so Crystal?
I have nothing else to add.
You have nothing else to add? Okay, great. Commissioners, did you have any other questions for Crystal before we deliberate? All right, then, thanks, Crystal. Let's go on into deliberation then. What do y'all think?
And the only question I have is about the window alterations on the side.
Okay,
It's kind of unbalanced looking from the print and,
are you talking about the egress?
no, I'm talking about these two lights on the north side that are different distances apart from the larger opening in the center. I would like to hear what other people think of that because it looks odd to me. And I also have, I don't think the issue with I think you solved the overhanging roof with the ADU, right? Okay, so that's not an issue. All right. Now it's just like to discuss the windows and how everyone else feels about that.
All right,
I get the same feeling I do.
anybody want to talk about windows?
Well, I mean, I think we've certainly seen other projects that change the window arrangement on not so visible sides of houses. So I think overall, you've still got the paired windows. And the proportions of the smaller windows on either side are, in keeping with what you would see on a house of this era. So they don't particularly concern me, especially given the side elevation and not being so visible from the street. So that's my take on it. I'm just going to use that as a segue to talk about the egress windows on the, I guess, other side, the south side. Is that right? I understand what the applicant was saying as far as their reading of the design guidelines, but I think in this case, it's clear that the symmetry that you're really getting on that facade are the two existing windows on the main wall, and to kind of move us out from those while maybe doing so symmetrically, I think takes away from that. And so I would agree with staff that it doesn't meet the guidelines for egress windows. I guess I'll just quickly say that for the chimney that I asked about, I don't have any concerns about that, just in case someone was wondering, but I just wanted to kind of know clearly if that was the chimney that we see on the front facade that is a character defining feature of the front of the house, I would have major concerns about this, but it's, a very small chimney flue really that's on the roof ridge, so I'm okay with that, meeting design guideline 2.25.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts about any other items?
I'm a little, I guess I'm a little on the fence about the roof tiles. They
Yeah.
do seem kind of heavy, but I appreciate the effort that has gone into, finding that product. So I remain open to hearing what other people think about those.
Yeah, let's talk about the roof. Anybody?
My 2 cents,
Sure.
and the reason why I asked my question was that, the concrete tile is a good product in my opinion overall, a good durable product that's gonna last a long time. It is difficult, in my opinion, to match a cedar shake. That's a very unique texture and look. So I think they've done a pretty good job in trying to do so, and also have proposed, in my opinion, a good product overall. So I don't really take exception to the proposed concrete tiles.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with staff and all of their main objections with the exception of two. One is the roof. And then the second is the form of the ADU and the recessed wings. I put it to the group, what would be acceptable if the footprint of that building is acceptable? what roof form for wings is more appropriate. You know, I don't know, and I don't know if staff had that discussion with the applicant either. But is it a flat roof? Does that make it okay? Given where it is in the recess, I mean, I'm generally, personally, I think it's within approvable standards.
I agree with you. I see some nodding heads. Erica, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I agree with that.
Rusty?
I do think the symmetry, of the south elevation of the main building is a little odd. I don't think it really is symmetrical because it doesn't feel balanced, even though it's a mirror image on both sides of that center line. So that relationship concerns me a bit. And I find the roof form of the ADU awkward and unusual, but can't opine further on that.
All right, so it sounds like we might be coming to some sort of agreement. It sounds like, so the ADU, people are nodding their heads. They're pretty okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, help me out. Don't all speak at
You
once.
couldn't hear my head nod?
I couldn't hear your head nod. Silly me. And then the roof, I actually don't have any trouble with the tiles. I know how hard it is to find good products, and that's not an easy thing to do these days. So are we looking at denials, so it might make it cleaner, but the applicant knows that we are okay with those items? What do y'all think? What would make it cleaner?
Denial on
sounds-
what basis? What would be the basis
Well,
if we're,
It would be.
if we're
So
saying
The
this-
basement windows,
just the egress and
Yeah.
the symmetry of the windows.
yeah,
and
Well,
then-
you could do an approval with the condition that
Yeah.
the egress windows on the south elevation be restudied
That might be easier to do.
per the
Or-
guidelines.
I mean, I think we've been warned about using the term restudy.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah, per
more
the
specific.
guidelines.
Yeah,
Which I think say align basement windows with, I don't have the guidelines in front of me.
yeah, I mean, I think it would
That's-
be aligned with the windows above.
And it's gonna change the layout of the space below, right?
Correct, yeah.
I mean, we don't review the interior though.
Correct, yeah,
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think the reason why they are where they are is because of that.
yeah, I agree. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think there's a balance to be struck as far as, again, like with the chimney. If the small chimney, like if I could have my, if it was easiest to keep it where it is, I would say keep it where it is, but it's a small element that isn't character defining, that, has some practical reasons for its removal. I haven't studied, the floor plan in great detail, but I feel like with the egress windows, it's a more prominent feature that I think needs to take precedent over preferences on layout in the interior.
Okay, so if we do a conditional approval, then we can call out the egress
Mhm.
and the windows. The symmetry of those windows.
To align with the south.
Yeah,
To align with the
Elevation.
windows above.
right.
Right. Was there, I guess there was the question of the brick, whether, they're, again, they're.
On the carriage house, yeah.
Yeah, whether they're paying, whether we want that information or not. I guess it's easy enough to say we do.
It's easy enough to say that we do, yeah. The
And-
condition that
and
we
the
receive more
applicant seemed very-
information. Yeah,
Amenable to me
I
giving
think
that
so.
information.
yeah, and that's easy enough to supply too. Anybody want to take a crack at it?
I can do so. I'm just trying to, since it's a change in the,
Mhm.
I just want to make sure I'm referencing the
Get
right.
the right guidelines.
It's definitely 4.20 for the materials. on the
Okay.
80,
4.20 for materials.
But I don't know the window one off the top of my head.
Egress.
Yeah, I have that. And then,
2.18,
Yep,
2.18B.
yeah,
2.1.
okay. I move to conditionally approve application number 2023-COA 244 for the ADU and alterations at 735 North Race Street as per design guidelines 2.14, 2.18, 2.20, 2.26, 2.28, 4.18 through 4.20, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the two conditions. One, that the egress windows on the south side align with the main windows above. And two, that the brick specifications be provided for the ADU.
Thank you, Erica. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nick has seconded it. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, it has been conditionally approved and you can work with Crystal on the 2 items that we have conditions on.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, moving along, right on. 2024-COA-423 at 501 Lafayette Street in the Driving Park District. And that is Brittany's project.
Well, our next application is for an addition to a classic bungalow at in the Driving Park Historic District. This structure is contributing to the Driving Park Historic District and was constructed in 1923. It is a corner property, as you can see in the district map here and the photograph image of that property. So the applicant is proposing to construct a new rear 2-story addition on the front 65 of the lot. The existing structure does have a basement that is accessed via the rear mudroom. That mudroom will be demolished as part of this addition and a new connector addition constructed. Additionally, a greenhouse that is non-historic will be demolished as part of this addition. Demolition is limited to just the mudroom and is well below the 40%, so staff are supportive of the placement and the demolition project scope for this project. So here you can see the existing and proposed floor plan. I just have it at the ground floor for the existing, but the existing mudroom does access the basement, and the new connector addition will continue and maintain that basement access to the primary structure and then allow access into the second floor of the proposed addition. The interior floor plan of the historic home has been heavily modified. It is no longer intact, although we don't review the interior. I did just want to note that. And it is a interesting layout now, I will say. If the bedroom is in this bump out addition here, which does have an exterior door in it, and the kitchen and other spaces over here with the living room. So this is to expand the living space. The connector addition will have a clear story glazing where the stairs are, but there are no windows proposed for the connector addition. Staff are comfortable with the roof form of the connector addition as it does maintain the existing basement access and that clear story as it provides light into that space. The new addition will have a side gable that faces onto the side street, and that's to mimic the gable form of the bump out as viewed from the street, although mostly speaking, it is a forward facing gable, but it doesn't have that strong appearance from the street. So here are the existing and proposed conditions. You can see the house that is, oops, sorry, that jumped forward, behind this shadowed in, so it is much taller. The addition is proposed to be taller than the existing historic structure, which is 15 and some change in height, and the proposed addition is proposed to be 23 feet in height. But again, that connector addition is lower in scale, and the proposed footprint of the addition is smaller than the existing historic structure. And our guidelines do encourage 2-story rear additions on 1-story homes with a connector addition. So here you can see the proposed side gable that will face onto the secondary street, again to mimic that roof form of that bump out on the historic structure and that side gable orientation along the secondary street. This roof will encroach into the bulk plane on both the south and north side of the structure, and staff are supportive of that encroachment on both sides, as it does allow for that side gable profile that we feel is most compatible with this structure, as the applicant has done a number of studies and we've gone through several iterations of this addition. So here are the additional elevations at the rear. There will be stucco control joints at the rear elevation. This addition is proposed to be clad in stucco. We do see stucco control joints on new construction on elevations that don't have a high level of visibility. So there are no control joints proposed for the street fronting facade, but there will be some on the rear. The applicant has done their best to align them with the windows. The windows on here will both mostly be double hung 1/1 windows. And here you can see that facade where the connector addition of the addition will tie in to the existing historic structure and the mudroom and greenhouse that is proposed for demolition. All windows will be inset into the wall plane per the guidelines. The south elevation, which is on a secondary street fronting elevation, again, is a gable form to match the gable form of the bump out on the existing bungalow cottage. It will have a large patio door on the ground floor that is covered by a canopy. However, this will have minimal visual impact on the surrounding context, as it will be located behind a fence and it does allow for light into that living space. And then above it does have a group of 3 windows that is bumped out. That is kind of playing some in a way to the chimney bump out on the existing side gable on the side elevation as well. So again, you can see no stucco control joints on this elevation. In the gable face, it will transition into a lap siding, and staff is just asking for confirmation that the lap siding profile be between 4 and 6 inches as recommended by the design guidelines. So that is their one condition on this project proposal. Generally speaking, we feel it is compatible with the surrounding historic context, and the applicant has provided several views of the proposed addition showing how it will fit in with the surrounding context in the Driving Park Historic District, and will have minimal visual impact on the historic structure and could be removed without damaging the historic structure, while also providing that 2-story addition with the connector piece as recommended by our design guidelines. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Brittany. Commissioners, any questions for Brittany? It doesn't look like it. All right, I'm assuming our applicant is joining us virtually.
They are.
Excellent. Hi, Ozzy.
Okay. Hi
Hi,
there, am I
Ozzy.
there?
Hi, how are you?
Doing great.
Excellent. If you could start, you'll have 10, you know the routine. You have 10 minutes to give your presentation. And at the beginning of that 10, please give us your name and your address for our records, Ozzy.
Yes, I'm Ozzy Friedrich with Radix Design. We are at 528 West First Avenue in Denver. Yeah, many thanks to Brittany for the project introduction. We've definitely discussed the proposed addition a lot together, and we've appreciated the multiple rounds of working with Landmark staff on the design. The original house that we are starting from on the site is a very, very small house, kind of uncharacteristically small, even for the surrounding neighborhood. And you know, we wanted to be very careful about proposing an addition that, you know, is kind of a size needed to meet the owner's needs, but while still remaining subordinate to that original house and not overwhelming it. I think the design element that has been most critical towards that in the proposed design is the original house has quite a high finished floor at ground level. It's about 3.5 feet above adjacent grade, maybe even a bit more. And we kind of had the idea of holding down the mass of the proposed addition by kind of creating a split level condition where the ground floor of the addition is down at landscape grade, so it has a direct connection with the outdoors. And then the second floor is, only about 6 feet above the height of the original finished floor. The original mudroom space in the original house was kind of the vertical circulation core. And so this design continues that idea where that kind of connector space is used for all the vertical circulation in the house with the stair that steps down to the lower floor of the addition, up to the upper floor of the addition, and then a stair below that leading to the original basement of the house. So the new proportions of that mudroom area are basically the same as the original, and the design of it kind of incorporates a clerestory element that does recall that original mudroom's kind of, it was a very glassed in space. The proposed stucco is detailed so that it has the feeling of a masonry structure that has been stuccoed. So for instance, the window recesses are kind of extra deep beyond what the guidelines would call for to make it feel more like a masonry wall. As Brittany indicated, the symmetry of the south-facing facade is really derived from the symmetry of the original south-facing addition on the house. That's really maybe its most distinctive design element. It's much more prominent to the street when you're going by the corner. And so we were looking for a design that kind of carried out and continued the rhythm of that original south-facing addition, but with the connector separation. The connector concept is based directly on the diagram in the guidelines about how to do a 2-story addition to a 1-story home. And again, kind of developed as I've talked about, to hold the massing down as much as possible. And then the administrative modification that we're asking for is really to allow that gable roof to align with that original south-facing addition, again, so that you feel that rhythm. We've looked at the roof going in multiple directions, and this one is really the most compatible. We also looked at, kind of doing a dog-ear jerkin head roof to see if that would duck under the bulk plane and not need that admin mod, but it did not fit at all with the original. So we're very pleased with the one we're bringing you today. I think the latch siding reveal condition is not an issue with us. Someday we'll learn to include that in our submittal and not have to do that. And we'll really look forward to your questions and your thoughts. Thank you.
Excellent. Let's see if anybody has any questions. No questions, Ozzy. Sorry about that. All right, Ozzy, thank you very much. All right, then let's go on to see if there are any public comments on this project. If anyone has joined us virtually or wishes to join us to comment virtually, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom, dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining by phone, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with those hand raise options. And you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. There's nobody here that wishes to in person. So is there anybody in the virtual world that would like to make a comment? It does not look like I see any hands. Okay, great. All right. All right. Before we go into deliberation, anybody have any questions for Brittany? Or Brittany, do you have anything that you want to?
I have nothing.
She has nothing final and you have no questions. All right, thank you. Thanks, Ozzy. Let's go into deliberation then. What do you think, guys? What are your thoughts?
I believe it was pretty straightforward for staff, and it's the same for me.
I would agree with you. Anybody else?
I concur.
Thank you, Rusty.
I just have one kind of comment.
Sure, Chris.
I'm sorry, it's regarding that roof, between the addition and the existing building that's kind of sloped towards the historic, or the original building. It's kind of I guess in that hallway corridor that expands into, and it kind of slopes towards the building, and it looks a little out of place in my opinion. And that's really the only kind of concern, and also just kind of the long-term durability of that water shedding onto the historic structure. I have some concerns with, so that's just, I just want to put that out there for other people's opinions.
What does anybody else think about that?
Yeah, that was something that caught my eye when first looking at it too, especially the concerns about dumping the water right into that wall. I guess my understanding is that it's sloping to accommodate, it's essentially accommodating a stairway that is going up and down. And so I guess is, using the minimum space that it needs to accommodate that. So I guess I would, and the clear story window on that space does help with the kind of awkwardness, I guess, for me, but I don't know if there's, a way to have a condition of ensuring some sort of cricket or something, I don't know what it would be to help with the water shedding, or just to ensure that it's being taken care of. I'm sure.
It's a little confusing because the rendering doesn't match the roof plan. Because it seems to work in the roof plan with just a crease, a gable paralleling the street gable, the shed coming down. That appears as though the cricket's lower.
So could that be a
That part there.
condition that we?
Yeah.
Just don't leave this window open because of water.
I don't think you can open it.
Or is this even a purview?
I mean, I guess I'm not sure where you guys are going.
I
here.
think actually, I think it works, if I'm looking at it correctly.
Yeah,
This slopes down and that slopes in and meets in a corner that I'm sure will be scuppered or downspouted. Side of the old building.
perhaps it could be, our concern could be considered a friendly comment.
Mhm.
Going ahead with for the architect and the contractor going ahead.
Yeah, it's certainly not like a design element so
Right.
much as a, like. just
Yeah,
make
it's a
sure
concern,
you're
yeah,
dotting your
constructability is not
i's.
necessarily in our purview, so. All right. Anything else? No, all right, do I hear a motion?
Get to it, I'll do. Madam Chair.
Nick,
I move to approve with conditions application 2024-COA-423 for the rear addition at 501 Lafayette Street. As per design guidelines 3.1 through 3.8 and 5.2, character defining features for the driving park historic district, presented testimony, submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report with the following condition. 1, lap siding shall have a smooth finish and 4 to 6 inch exposure per guideline 3.6E. I also move that the Landmark Preservation Commission find that that conforming with the zoning standard for bulk plain would have an adverse impact on the historic character of the historic district driving park for the proposed addition. I don't believe this is let me restate that.
sure,
I also move that the Landmark Preservation Commission find that that conforming with the zoning standard for bulk plain would not have an Oh, would have,
Would have, yeah,
yes, it's correct.
Yes, it was.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Zoning standard for bulk plan would have an adverse impact on the historic character of the historic district driving park for the proposed addition per section 12.4.5.2B of the Denver zoning code.
Thank you, Nick. Do I hear a second? George has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. All right, Ozzy. You can work with Brittany on that, supplying information for that condition. All right, let's get on to the number 3. It is 2022-COA-505 at 900 Oneida Street in the Montclair district. And it is Brittany's project.
So our next project is another corner property. This is non-contributing to the Montclair Historic District. It was constructed in 1946. The commission has reviewed this application several times. There is a pop-top addition that has recently been constructed on this home. And our inspector, Lauren Gleason, went out to final the inspection and noted a number of inspection issues at the time. Many of those issues are being resolved internally between inspections and landmark staff. However, there is one outstanding issue related to the window articulation on this existing sunroom addition that does front on to Kittredge Park. So you can see the property location here. Again, it's a corner property right across from Kittredge Park. So the issue in question is how the windows were constructed, finished on the sunroom addition, and additionally how plans were presented and approved by the commission, and never once was staff notified that the plans were incorrect or that the plans would not be constructed as presented. So the existing sunroom addition did have a sloped roof, and the commission did approve the roof to be reconstructed into a hipped form. And then previously the sunroom also had vertical lap siding that the commission did approve to be replaced with horizontal lap siding. So as you can see in the existing photos, it is a bit difficult to tell, but there is a row-lock course that transitions between the brick and the vertical siding that was present on the existing sunroom, and that row-lock course does not go across the window headers for the proposed, for the existing sunroom addition. However, in the proposed plans, the plans were showing that a row-lock header would be added to the project proposal and be incorporated as part of the roof alteration. So this detail, again, was not shown correctly in the existing plans. It is very difficult to see this existing detail drawn correctly. Again, staff were not notified that this row-lock header would not be constructed as it was not an existing condition. The applicant has stated that it is not possible to construct this row-lock header, which makes logical sense. However, staff feel that this does have a unfinished appearance and that the windows do need some type of header. The applicant is requesting approval as the as-built conditions without any kind of header detail. So basically what you see out there today. So I just have a few additional photographs to show that condition. Again, we're just really concerned that it does have an unfinished appearance. It does match what was there before, but with the change in the roof profile, particularly on the south elevation and these large windows here, it becomes much more evident than it was previously when it was just the 2 smaller windows on the east and west elevations. So staff are recommending denial because again, we feel it does need some type of header detail, not necessarily the row-lock header that was shown in all the approved plans that we have reviewed, but also not what the applicant is showing today, which is just the conditions that you see before you in the inspection photos. There are another number of issues that we are resolving with the applicant that are represented in the plans. For instance, the garage doors are bubbled in the plans. However, we will do an infill modification for those. We have issued an AC permit, and as far as I know, they may already have a permit for that, I haven't checked, yeah. But, so we're resolving all the other issues. But this is the one outstanding issue that, staff and the applicants kind of struggled with.
Okay, all right. Commissioners, question for staff? Doesn't look like any questions. All right, and the applicant is here. Just have a seat, make yourself comfortable. You'll have 10 minutes to tell us about the project. And at the beginning, if you give your name and address for our records.
And if you can turn on the camera, do you need help with that?
Probably
Yeah,
figure that out.
Let me come over there and then just wait to start until I
Technician.
can get the timer up and I have your presentation,
Thank you.
so just let me know if you want me to change. Just let me get over. So
Good.
where I need to and stuff.
No worries.
Looks like you're good. So good.
Excellent.
And I will be pulling up the.
Should it be
timer.
muted too?
It should be muted because the speaker is actually
yeah,
over
yeah.
here. We use a slightly different.
Otherwise you're gonna echo.
Yeah. Okay, there's that, and then I'm gonna enter full screen for this.
All right, I'm Phil Doughton. I'm with Prent Valley Builders at 5180 Fox Street. First of all, I'd like to apologize to Brittany and the staff. This is our first landmark project, so just going through the motions of slight alterations we made. We hit a couple walls on things. We moved AC out. We actually moved it out of line of sight of the street, which we thought was a good thing for landmark, which apparently it wasn't without getting approval first, of course. So, big learning experience for us in terms of, crossing all our T's and dotting our I's when it comes to getting landmark approval and blessings. And a lot of that too was client changes mid-project and then them reverting back those changes because they could, their budgets didn't align. So there was a lot of hoops to jump through on this one. But in terms of the rollout detail, again, yeah, if any of the other issues were the big problem, those would have been easier to fix. This one's probably the hardest. And hindsight's 2020, but we thought since we weren't changing anything from the existing structure that we were in the clear, but obviously not. Learning experience for us. But in terms of the row lock, who's next slide? Can we do next slide? Thank you. This was just a basic summary saying that it's the existing conditions show that it did not have a row lock, but landmarks saying that there's a lot of similar header details for other homes in the area that they want to see reflected since we did change the style of roof. And next slide. This again just showing pretty much that same image that Brittany showed, showing that we did not in fact have a row lock before. So we can go to the next slide after that. Build conditions, we saw that. I think the bigger one, so the big thing I wanted to kind of address was on the next slide. The header detail, and I'm not an architect, I'm a builder. So I don't know what exactly is considered a header, but there are many homes that have the sill detail, and some of them have stone headers that go across the top of them. But I've also found a number of homes that there isn't really any detail, but I don't know how many of these are non-compliant landmark homes, but non-conforming, but found a number of homes that don't have any kind of header or stone header or row lock across the top. In Rachel Nagy's drawing, she shows that row lock just because it kind of made sense from a visual perspective, but I've never seen any row lock detail across the top of a header in the neighborhood. I scoured the neighborhood, and if it was a smaller window like these, it probably wouldn't have been as big of a deal. But when we're talking about, 10 feet of row lock, structurally, it doesn't make any sense, because, and we can go to that, then the next slide there. Structurally, it doesn't make any sense because it's what we'd have to do is put a lintel in and it just be a single course of row lock. And our big fear is that there's, when row lock on the rest of the house has other brick to lock itself into, with the mortar, the holes in the mortar kind of lock in that row lock. But with a single course lintel, all it is a piece of metal with a bunch of mortar on it and solder, a row lock going all the way across. Our big concern is that we've never seen it before. It's such a big span, and that those joints are just gonna crack, within a handful of years, especially since it's south facing and the sun, the hot and cold of that span is really gonna just cause maintenance issues and longevity issues in terms of just making sure they don't have to deal with that as a problem. And for future reference, if that is required, we would have known it earlier on. And again, it's our fault for not addressing it when it was built, or prior to it being built. But the most structurally sound component or like construction would be doing that whole thing brick instead of just window, row lock, and then siding. Because then we'd have all the brick above to tie into each other to really create a structural component rather than just one single row lock going all the way through. So on future reviews, it might be important to consider that, especially on such a big opening, because just the longevity issue wouldn't be as big of a deal. That's all I got.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicant?
I just have one clarification. So the material above the windows is all horizontal lap siding?
Yeah, so it's window, row lock, brick row lock, and then side, just lap siding above. Yep. So we did just trim all the way around the window and then siding above.
Anybody else? No, doesn't look like it. Great, thanks, you can have a seat.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if there's anybody out in the public in the virtual world that would like to comment. If you would like to comment, please click the hand raise button on Zoom or dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining us by phone, or you can email you can email landmark@denvergov.org with name and phone number if you have any difficulty with those.
So Rachel's the architect, so she would also be the applicant.
So yeah, you can only comment if you are not part of the applicant team.
There is 4 minutes left.
There's 4 minutes left, so she could have the 4 minutes. Okay, that's fine. Sure, okay.
Oh, she declined. Okay. Allow it. Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, since you're part of the applicant team, you'll have 4 minutes, because there's 4 minutes left after the first part of that application.
Okay, great. So yes, I am Rachel Nagy with Nagy Design and at 2255 Sheridan Boulevard in Edgewater, Colorado. And I just wanted to add on the part of the person doing the drawing, of course, and having some continuity between these pop top portions of the structure itself. It was an aesthetic choice very early on to continue the row lock similar to how the main house was going to be erected after, its main level. So as we chose to redo the roof on that sun porch, which was also an additive to the non-contributing structure after the main build, that was a strict choice, but as it was existing and we are conforming with the existing nature of it, and replaced those windows at the sunroom with approval from Landmark. I just wanted to reiterate that we were staying consistent, and of course, with any structural concern, making sure that the longevity of the home itself was going to continue with this new construction. So thank you, Phil, for talking on everything else, but I just wanted to chime in and make sure I had my part in it. Thank you, Brittany, for dealing with all of the things on this project. You've been great.
Great, Rachel, hang on, make sure the commissioner doesn't have a question. Any question for the architects, Commissioner?
Yeah, I don't know that I understand the structural concern. I don't think I fully understand that, or maybe anybody does. Like, what structural concerns do we have with a roll lock being up there? It's not a structural element, right? You obviously have a header that's, you know, that window's suspended from. So I just, maybe if you can explain that a little bit further, that would be helpful.
Yeah, just the the large span that we have there, row lock is usually sitting on top of brick or like tied into brick somewhere. I've never seen a detail where it's just brick or just one single course. So our big concern is that since there's no, brick is meant to be when those bricks are tied into each other, there's 3 holes. Everything's filled with mortar, everything kind of ties in into a web of brick. So even the row lock that's up above, the mortar that's sitting, that the brick is sitting on is tied into each other and tied to the course below. And in this case, there would just be one single course of brick sitting on metal, which would be a lintel, and that metal lintel would, have mortar in it, but there's no way for that it really to create a strong bond because it's metal to mortar and there's nothing kind of locking it into place. And our concern is that it's south facing too. So, winter, summer, all that hot and cold is going to make the joints between the row lock crack because there's nothing really locking it all in together.
So again, I'm a little confused, but are the mullions structural in this case? Or are you talking about a clear span across the
So
top?
clear span across the top.
But you can't do that with an angle. That's gonna require a beam,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
code, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could tie, you could put a lintel tied into because there's a beam that carries that window, the framing above
Okay,
the
so just
window. So you
brick
could
ledge
attach the
or- yeah.
lintel to the face, and then put them in there. But our biggest concern is like there's nothing really locking in the brick from above or below, so it's just gonna like crack and splinter off over time.
Okay, did that answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Great, anybody else?
I just, I don't see a detail of the capital of that pier.
Sorry,
Uh,
is this a question or?
Yeah.
deliberation?
Well, I have a question for the
Okay,
applicant.
just
Is that
making
all
sure,
right?
cause we
'Cause
gotta do.
we had gone into public
Oh, yeah.
comments, but that's okay.
We have,
We had, but
I thought
It
she
was-
had the 4 minutes and
yeah, she had her 4 minutes, so
I just wanna make sure we're
not in
we're
public
following
comment yet,
process,
yeah,
so
so-
just, it's a question, that's fine, I just wanna make sure where we were in the process.
yeah, tell me if we're not there.
Go for it, ask your question.
What is the proposed flashing? Is there flashing above that brick transitioning to the lap siding?
On the existing,
No, on the new. I mean, what's the detail on top of that brick?
on the existing row lock that's on the side there.
That and the new. So as you turn the corner, you have that pier and then it sets back from the brick face to the lap siding.
See, there's a
What's the
flash.
cap to the,
There's an
brick?
L flashing,
but no lip over the brick? It's just a,
cause this is on an angle, slight angle. So there's a L flashing that gets tucked up behind the siding there. And most of it was existing, cause it was there to begin with. we added some in to help with flashing. Like you can see the lip of the flashing right here on this, that little dark spot right up there.
All right, thanks.
Any more questions for the applicants? It doesn't look like it. Okay, all right, then let's go back into public comment then. So if you're joining us virtually and you'd like to make a comment on this project, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom. You can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining by phone. And you could also email landmark@denvergov.org with your name or phone number if you're having difficulty with either of those options, and you will have 2 minutes to provide your comment. Do you see any hands raised? All right, yeah, I apologize. That was my fault. I didn't realize that Rachel was a part of the applicant team and I was assuming she was here for public comment. All right. Staff, anything that you wish to say before we deliberate?
Yeah, I mean, it was an existing condition. Again, the issue is more that the plans were not presented to us accurately. We did 4 revisions on these plan sets. We weren't notified that the plans were inaccurate or this wasn't a condition that the applicant intended to construct. We did look at some of the examples the applicant provided. Many are non-contributing, but most of the contributing structures do have a header detail. Even the example provided by the applicant, it doesn't transition immediately into lap siding. It's on the contributing structure, it's a board band detail. So we're just worried that it does have an unfinished appearance, but this is a non-contributing structure and it was an existing condition. So I think it's valid for the commission to debate if it should be left as is or if they should do some other kind of header detail or do the row lock detail.
All right, so if we decide that it should exist as is, then we would approve it. And if we
Correct.
want changes, then we deny.
Correct.
All right. Any questions for Brittany before we move on? All right, let's go into deliberation, everybody. What are your thoughts?
I think there's opportunity to mimic that header. I think there's some other, just for argument's sake, like a thin brick that you could directly adhere to the sheathing that would mimic that you wouldn't need a lintel for or anything like that. So I think there are some possibilities to try to get the look that, that I think to match the historic fabric. So I know we're not in the design business here, but there are maybe some opportunities to maybe match that.
All right. Anybody else? Nick, what are your thoughts?
I'm inclined to let it stand as it is. I just think that it's a detail that's lost in the overall statement, right? And so it's not something that I would choose to nitpick at this point.
I tend to agree with you. I see Eric nodding her head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would want it to stay on my house, but I don't see it as being something that makes or breaks it as far as landmark
I
goes.
can't get excited about it either.
George is not excited about it.
Well,
okay.
well, it's gonna
That's the
You get-
criteria for
That's the
George's
criteria.
excitement.
really, well, I know, but you're gonna put an awning over it or something. you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
but where is all the excitement?
It is a non-contributing.
Right.
Yeah. Russ, did you have any thoughts?
Honestly, I'm not sure I really understand the details of the whole issue behind it, so I'm reluctant to weigh in much.
Okay. All righty, then do I hear a motion? So remember, denial was that we would require them to rework it. And approval is where we approve it as is, existing conditions.
Okay, I'll make an exciting.
George is gonna make the exciting, yeah.
Madam
go for it.
Chair,
Yes,
I move to approve application 2022 COA-505 for the as-built conditions for the window and door header detail on the sunroom at 900 Oneida Street as per design guidelines 4.8. Character defining features for the Montclair Historic District presented testimony submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, George. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nick
Oh,
has
thanks.
seconded it. I know you go through all that, and no one wants to second it. Nick has seconded it.
Yeah, really.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, it has been approved, existing conditions as is. All right, we're moving right along. 2024-CUA-261 at 227 West Fifth Avenue in the Baker neighborhood, and that is Jesse. Hi, Jesse.
Hi there. Can I just scoot up next to you? Okay, so this is 227 West Fifth Avenue. It was constructed in 1900 and is a contributing building to the Baker Neighborhood Historic District. The applicant removed existing octagonal and straight edge profile shingles in the gambrel end and on the side dormer and back of house, and replaced it with a round profile shingle. The applicant is requesting retroactive approval of the round shingle. Let me back up one more. So staff is recommending denial of the application, citing intent statements 2A, 2B, 2F, and guidelines 2.8 and 2.12. And I'll spend the next few slides kind of going over the application and why staff is recommending that. So pictured here is the shingles that were on the house prior to removal. As you can see, the shingles were octagonal on the front of the house and on the side, turret style non-historic addition or dormer addition. But on that side, the other side of the house where it's just the head roof addition, it was a straight edge shingle. We don't have photos of what the shingle looked like on the back of the house, but given that it's on a secondary elevation, it wasn't uncommon for them to be straight edge shingles as well. And then the more ornate shingle to be used on the front of the house. So staff feels that alteration of the existing shingles does not meet the intent statements 2A, 2B, and guideline 2.8, as the historic shingle materials appear to be in repairable condition and replaced with materials that do not match the profile appearance or shape of the previous historic shingle profile. And then the shingles on the house, they were replaced with true wood round shingles. And those again don't match the profile of the historic shingles that were on the building. Staff feel that the new shingles do not meet intent statement 2F or guideline 2.12. Staff is recommending denial of the application, as the applicant has removed historic siding material that may have been repairable and replaced it with materials that do not match the historic siding profile or appearance. And we are again citing intent statements 2A, 2B, 2F, and guidelines 2.8 and 2.12.
Jesse, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Jesse?
Just to be absolutely clear, I am excited about this one, by the way. The notations here, these are the before pictures, correct?
Correct, yes.
That's all I wanted to know.
Could you show us that, which was before, which was after? I think I'm a little confused too about that.
They're labeled the same in the application. In the application materials, pardon me. So these were the previous shingles, and can you zoom in on those at all? Just the front of the building, so you can see it's that octagonal profile. And then if we scroll over to the far image, you can see that there is a historic dormer on the side of the house. And when we zoom in on, no, yeah, there, that one. It is a straight edge shingle
that was there originally, and they look like they are individual shingles and not like a panel of shingles like you see with modern shingles. And they appeared to have been in a repairable condition with only minor replacements for some of those shingles. But instead, they were all replaced, and they used round shingle profile rather than matching the historic shingle profile that was on the house. So this is, and you can see the person up on the ladder there. That's the mid installation, the new round shingle.
Other questions? Okay, great. Jesse, thank you. Is our applicant joining us virtually? Yes. All right.
And the applicant does have a presentation.
Okay. Hello, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You'll have 10 minutes to talk about your presentation. And at the beginning of it, please give us your name and your address for our records.
Okay, my name is Danielle Dene. I am the property manager appearing on behalf of 227 West Fifth Avenue in Baker neighborhood. Requesting the retroactive approval for siding replacement from the octagon profile to the round profile. So per guideline 2.12, the replacing portions that are beyond repair. So on June 22nd of 2023, a hailstorm hit the home, causing significant damage to the shakewood siding on the south, east, and north elevation. And then on the south elevation, the lower two rows, which in your first slide, if you look at the front of the house, sorry, not my slide, but your guys' first slide. Are you able to go back to that?
Yes, 1 second.
So the first slide showing the south or front facing view of the home. If you zoom in on that, you can see on the south elevation, the lower two rows of siding have been extremely chewed through and squirrels were nesting in there. The remaining of the siding was extremely brittle and rotted, where repair was not even an option for us. And then per guideline 2B and 2.8, we did try to keep the historic integrity with the decorative gable vents and the covers. They were able to be restored and painted, as well as keeping all of the original wood frames around the windows. Those were sanded, and we were able to keep all of the original frames around the windows. The siding on the west dormer was a shake siding. That when we removed it, that did look like it was replaced at some point, which is why we determined I don't think that it matched the other elevations. Per guideline 2A and 2F, we would propose to go with the new siding option, which would be the True Wood Designer Shake round half-inch lap siding. Based upon our observation of this product, it's been used on several homes in the Baker neighborhood, which is what we've provided addresses and photos, which is our attempt to maintain and preserve the stylistic features of the community.
Okay.
So the first home is the one at Cherokee, which shows the same type of siding and profile. Again, the one at 133rd West 3rd Avenue. 244 West Second Avenue. And 444 Lottie Street. And then 134th West Fifth Avenue.
Okay, are you done with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Commissioners, do you have questions for our applicant? Okay, it doesn't, oh, go ahead, Nick.
I'm sure staff asked you this, but before removing the existing siding, did you have a third party prepare a study stating that it was not repairable? What drove you to that conclusion? Was it one vendor or was it a third party?
So it was based off of the vendor, and then also when we tried to pull part of the siding to do the repair work, it was chewed by squirrels. It was so brittle, it just started breaking away. In addition, there was also no Tyvek or vapor barrier behind it. It was direct to the wood, which most of it had to be replaced due to rot. And so in order to bring it to code, we did have to change some of that siding behind it and then put up Tyvek because it wasn't existing.
Anybody else? Question for the applicant? Okay, it doesn't look like it. All right, then let us go to the public comment. See if we have anybody from the public joining us that would like to speak. If so, please click the hand raise button in Zoom, dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining by phone, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having trouble with either of those options. You will be given 2 minutes to provide your comment if you were not part of the applicant team. Taylor, do we have anybody? Nope. No, I don't see any hands raised. All right, Jesse, did you have any additional comments?
I do. So just for a couple points of clarification, 551 Cherokee Street, which was the first property shown in the property or the applicant slide deck, that was constructed in 2023. It is new construction. And it is based off the context, but that is not original material to the district. And then 444 Lottie Street, which was second to last, that is outside of the district boundaries. The other 3 properties were built in the 1880s. The shingle does appear original to the structure. If that were ever replaced, the guidelines would require that it match the historic shingle profile. In this case, the property owner, or excuse me, the applicant stated that there was no tieback behind the gable or gambrel roof portion of the building, showing that those shingles were likely historic. And we have no idea what the condition is. They're gone now. But our recommendation per the guidelines would be that they be, that the new shingles match the historic shingle profile.
Jesse, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners for Jesse?
Do you have any other further issues with the true wood? I mean,
Typically in the past, when we've used true wood, they end their panels like mid shingle. Landmark staff has required them to end the panel on a full shingle so that it doesn't have that weird seam in the middle of a shingle that makes it more identifiable as a panel material rather than individual shingles. So we have allowed the use of that material, but specifically require that they end it on a full shingle rather than midway.
I have some additional clarifications too. We mostly approve it on new infill construction. We have approved it on historic structures. However, when we went out and inspected, we found that it doesn't really do a good job replicating profiles. So we've become really leery about approving it on historic structures. Again, as Jesse said, we do allow it on new construction, provided they cut it at a natural edge as it's a panelized product. However, we haven't had an applicant forward the true wood product on a historic structure to the commission for further determination in a while, to my knowledge, so.
Yeah, the last one I had was on Champa Street.
Yeah. Anybody else? Question for Jess? Nope. All right, Jesse, thank you very much. All right, let us go into deliberation then, gang. What are your thoughts? George has thoughts.
Oh, yeah, well, having replaced many, many shingles individually, that it is labor intensive. They are tough to find, but can be found. This particular house was 1886. Didn't find any Tyvek behind there either. I will support staff on this decision easily.
Okay, great. Erica, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's not fun or pleasurable to, you know, deny these sorts of applications when, you know, there's clearly some intent of trying to repair a historic building, but I think it's clear why we have these guidelines is to help avoid these situations. And so to ignore that
Yeah.
is
Why have
basically
that?
going against why we have them in the first place.
Yeah.
So I would support staff.
Wouldn't this be an insurance claim anyway? I mean, if it was attributed to a hailstorm, but
Well, yeah, out of our purview.
yeah, okay.
How they pay
Yeah, I
for it
know,
is
the
not in
money
our-
issue isn't
yeah,
ours, but
exactly.
that's fine.
Gentlemen, any thoughts?
I agree with staff as well.
Okay, all right, do I hear a motion from the floor, please?
I can, Madam Chair, I'll move to deny application number 2023-COA-261 for the replacement of siding at 227 West Fifth Avenue as per design guidelines 2A, 2B, 2F, 2.8, 2.12, character defining features for the Baker Neighborhood Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Erica, thank you. A second?
Second.
Georgia seconded it. Alrighty, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Alrighty, the application has been denied. Jesse, thank you. All right, 2024-COA-377 at 678 King Street, number 291 in the Seventh Avenue Congregational Church, United Church of Christ. Brittany is our staff person. Brittany, take it away, please.
So our final application today is for an addition to the Seventh Avenue Congregational United Church of Christ, which is this structure that you see here. When I was putting together my presentation, I noticed that there is also an egress window for the adjacent structure to the south. That is part of the landmark property as well. We normally review egress windows administratively, but I will need to add that as a condition to this, that I have more information on it, as I did not notice it in the initial submittals. So the Seventh Avenue Congregational United Church of Christ is an individual Denver landmark. It was designated in 1998 for its historical, architectural, and geographical importance. The proposed addition is to accommodate ADA access into the space. As you can see in these photographs, the structure does sit on a Denver hill, and there are several set of steps to enter into the church. The addition will be placed in the rear, so on this rear elevation here. However, as this is a corner property, the addition will have a high level of visibility. So the proposed addition is fairly small, again, just to provide ADA access, will be located at the rear of the property and does have a gable roof to match the roof form of the primary structure. Again, it's mainly just an elevator lobby space to provide that ADA access. It will have a double entry door with side lights. There will be a door on the rear that does allow access into the existing playground and a new outdoor patio that will be installed with this addition. There will be a retaining wall that is part of this project scope. That retaining wall is located here. Staff were not concerned about the retaining walls. We do not find the Denver Hill here to be a character defining feature of this property, and also is needed to stabilize that grade. And it is minimally set back from the public right of way, and it will be clad in brick along West 7th Avenue. On the historic structure, there is one modification proposed, and it entails this door along West 7th Avenue. This is the door that gives a lot of trouble with the ADA access. It is located in a little alcove bump out with some buttressing surrounding that. The applicant is proposing to infill the existing door, which is not historic, with a new window, and remove the existing stairs to provide clarity for that ADA access. Staff were not concerned about the removal of the existing stairs, as they appear to be concrete and not super character defining feature. We're also not concerned with the removal of the existing door and infill with a window. However, we would recommend that the infill window fit the entirety of that door opening. As currently proposed, it's a smaller window with brick above, and we would recommend just a window that fits into that opening. The historic transom is proposed to remain. So that is one of the conditions on our project proposal. And again, when I was putting together this presentation, I did notice that there was an egress window proposed for the adjacent structure to the south. This is on the landmark property. So I will need additional information regarding that egress window, but it is on a secondary interior lot elevation, generally where we encourage the placement of egress windows. So there I'm just ensuring that the egress window is a wood, aluminum clad wood, or fiberglass composite, and then the egress well is constructed of high quality materials, which can be metal, concrete, brick, etc. So I just need additional information there. Okay. So those are our two conditions. But in terms of the addition itself, it will have a steeply pitched roof. It is taller than what is allowed for the rear lot per zoning, and staff are supportive of it being a 2-story and height addition that significantly exceeds the max height for the rear lot. So it's about 19 feet taller than is allowed. I know this sounds like a lot, but we feel that it matches the pitch of the adjacent projecting gable on the West 7th Avenue facade, where there is a stained glass window. Additionally, again, it is for that ADA access, and we feel that it doesn't kind of push the ADA access to the rear. It does give it some visual prominence, which is recommended generally speaking. So we are supportive of that encroachment into the height. And additionally, it will remain subordinate to the historic primary structure. So it's no taller than the primary structure. And we feel that it is compatible in architectural design. The proposed addition, again, like I said, will have a double entry door. The proportions of this door based on the historic door that you see on West 7th Avenue facade. They have restudied this a few times to get the arch proportions to match that of the historic in terms of relationship. And then all the windows will have a pointed arch similar to the historic structure. It will have a single band of soldier coursing for the header, and then precast sills. The existing historic structure has very decorative headers and on that, so it is a simplified interpretation of the architecture with the buttresses, with the precast, and the louver and the pointed windows. Here you can see that retaining wall that is proposed. Again, we feel that is compatible with the existing structure. Another condition we have on this is that in some places the fence is noted as 5 or 6 feet in height. It can be either of those. It just needs to be clarified in the project submittal. And then here are the rear and side elevations. There are some square windows here and some transom spandrel panels. It is a little bit different than the historic structure. However, it is providing light into that space. Again, that is ADA accessible. This new door here is to provide access to that rear patio that is proposed. So we do feel that while a little more contemporary in design than say the West 7th Avenue facade in terms of matching the proportions of the historic structure with the window openings, that this will have minimal visual impact on the surrounding historic context and the existing historic structure. So we are supportive of these windows on these secondary elevations. And they do have a pointed arch design to them in some places. So finally, I just have some renderings of the project proposal. Again, staff are recommending approval with a few conditions that are listed in the staff report, and with the additional condition regarding additional information be provided on the egress window for the adjacent. I'm not sure if it's the parish house, but for the adjacent, what was previously a single family residence attached to this property and part of this property.
Okay, questions for Brittany, commissioners?
Yeah, does staff feel that the buttresses that are on the addition on the 7th Avenue side do you feel that those are important for the success of this design?
We debated it a lot. I guess I wouldn't say we feel that they are important. We felt that the addition was identifiable with new construction with the simplified details in terms of around the windows. And it just kind of continued that architectural vocabulary of the existing structure. So I think we could go either way, but we felt that they were appropriate here.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, all right, Brittany, thank you. Is our applicant joining us virtually today? Yay, here's somebody. Hello? Hi there, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, excellent. Thank you for joining us. You'll have 10 minutes to talk about your project, and please begin that 10 minutes with your name and address for our records, please.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Miles Dake. I'm a principal at Dake Collaborative, and our address is 3435 South Inca Street, Suite C in Inglewood, Colorado. Yeah, Brittany, thanks a lot for that presentation. That did a really good job, I think, of describing the project really well. And thanks for working with us to come up with this design that gets us to approval with conditions here. So I'm excited to be here to present this. I did want to start by talking a little bit about the church and the congregation here. As Brittany mentioned, the genesis of this project was to create accessibility to all spaces within the church. The historic sanctuary is unbelievable. I didn't see any interior pictures, but on our presentation materials, there are a couple of pictures of the interior of that sanctuary, and it's a really, really neat space. So what we're proposing to do here is to create a lift system as well as some stairs that are a little bit easier for people with disabilities to be able to go up and experience these different spaces, just like any able person. So that's the hope here in creating this addition. As Brittany said, our intent with the architecture was to both be subordinate to, but also give nod to the historic architecture vocabulary. So one question was about buttresses. There were a number of buttresses along the way when you start from the front door all the way to the back that we wanted to give historic nod to some of those elements. Another piece of that is we wanted to create some prominence of that entryway, the new entryway, and but not have so much glazing on that front facade or the side facade really, as to take away from really the important pieces to the historic structure, which are the stained glass window that you can see a little bit in this elevation, and then also the bell tower that's just to the right of this elevation. So that was kind of the idea here, is that the buttresses were creating some sort of additional component where we felt like something should go. It felt a little bare without those buttresses there. A couple of points of clarification. here for that Brittany brought up. One is the fence height. What we're proposing is to just match the existing 6-foot wood fence, but instead of doing wood on the front, have that metal fence and have that exterior space be a little bit more open, a little bit more inviting for community engagement or just engagement from the street out to that backyard playground. The other piece is the window where we're infilling the existing door. Currently, as you walk up these stairs, once you get inside to the landing, you can go right up some kind of, I wouldn't even call them circular stairs. There's probably 3 or 4 angled stairs that get up to the sanctuary space. And from what I've heard from staff at the church, individuals have fallen. It's a really dangerous staircase. So the hope here is that we're able to remove those stairs, replace them with something that is a lot easier to access. So what we're replacing that with is on the second floor, we have a walkway that extends from the addition to the sanctuary. And below that, where the new window is proposed, is going to be a prayer room. So what we're hoping to do with creating another window here with brick above or some solid material was to create auditory separation between that walkway space, which will be a pretty public space, and a prayer room below, which we're hoping would be as quiet as possible. So that was the intent there with doing brick rather than having that be glazing all the way up from above to below. It's very hard, as you all know, I'm sure, to separate space, especially at a floor level, auditory separation between above and below if we just have a window there. So that was the intent with creating that space there. Let me look at my notes here since I've got a little time. Thanks for bearing with me. Yeah, and then Brittany brought up that egress window on the south side. That is part of the old parish hall. They are currently using that as a kid space here. So in addition to needing accessibility through a lift, they have a pretty thriving kids ministry too. So they've expanded out into the basement area there, into the south side parish hall, or excuse me, the house that served the church. And they're using that now as a kid space. So the egress window is mainly to bring in light into that kid's classroom, but also to create some sort of an egress path if for kids to be able to exit if there were issues there. So as Brittany said, I think our intent there is to match the windows, do wood-clad windows there, have either concrete or metal for the egress window piece. We can provide all of those details to make sure that they align with historic preservation. So I think with that, I'll yield the rest of my time.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see if there are any questions for you. Commissioners, questions for the applicant? No? Okay, great, thank you very much. There were no questions.
Thank
So
you.
we'll let, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Public comments for design review. Once again, click the hand raise button in Zoom if you wish to speak, or you can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. Email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. If you are having difficulty with either of those options, you will have up to 2 minutes to provide your comment. Taylor, do we have anybody wanting to talk? You know, doesn't look like it. All right. Brittany, did you have any other clarifications?
I guess if the space, the infill in the door, like I would still maybe consider a spandrel panel to provide versus the brick infill, just to kind of help preserve that appearance of the historic door
Okay,
opening.
so your condition doesn't change.
I don't remember what it said exactly. I think it said window.
Yeah,
It says infill it with a window that fits the opening size is your condition.
are you okay with that? Okay. you're gonna stay.
Discuss.
Good. Okay, any other questions for Brittany before we deliberate? No. Okay, Erica, I know you're running short on time.
Yeah.
Did you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you for
Of
moving
course.
us along, and I'm sorry
course.
I have to leave
No
early.
worries.
I guess I'll just start off by saying I was first a little concerned that this was not as distinguishable as I would like for an addition to a building, but I've come around to it, I think. And even the answer to the buttresses, I definitely acknowledge the importance of creating accessible entrances that are not an afterthought. And so I think this successfully does that, and that I understand the kind of logic of the buttresses. And that, it could very well look empty without them, but also does help kind of acknowledge this as another entrance. So I guess in the end, I think this is a successful design of an addition, and I agree with staff's findings. I also agree with the idea of not filling in that window, the door opening with more brick that would give a false sense of what that opening originally was. So finding some sort of window or spandrel or combination of the two, I think is a better fit. So I agree with staff.
Great, thanks, Erica. More comments? Gentlemen?
Comment I have about the buttresses is that if you look at that elevation on the addition, and then you look at the buttresses and where they're located on the original church, they seem spread out more so than the other buttresses that are located on the original church. So the original buttresses are kind of right next or right near the openings, window or door openings, and then on this one they're quite a bit separated from that. So that's just one comment I have about just kind of location and keeping that same design aesthetic. It's just slightly different.
Do you think that's a good thing as differentiating them, or does that raise concerns?
Well, to me, if you're going to try to mimic something or give nod to something as a presenter suggested, then I think I would, try to mimic it a little bit closer than what's presented here. But the overall design, I think, is very nice, and I think it's very complimentary to the original church. So it's just one comment I had.
Yeah, regarding that, I thought about that as well, but then I thought, this is new. And so to me, it kind of delineates, between the new and old, and we need to make sure that it doesn't look like old architecture. Anybody else? Nick?
I would just offer that whereas Erica moved toward liking the fact that it mimics the existing structure, I'm headed in the opposite direction the more I stare at it. I just think that especially, it's just such a complex, overly complex addition that has trouble marrying with the existing structure in my view. I understand staff's reason for moving them in this direction, and can support their support for the application, but I do think in future, just as a friendly comment, it would benefit reviewers and commission members if the existing structure was shown in a little more detail.
Yeah.
And the things that really made it difficult for me to discern, where my head was on this was the 3D renderings on A801, where it's, ghosted in gray, and then the the church as it is barely visible in the background, so it's very difficult to see how all these complex roof geometries come together. You have to spend some time that I think we could have saved a lot of time with more detail of the existing building within those renderings. So those are my general thoughts. If the commission is, Wade is moving toward approval with the conditions as staff noted, I can support that, but I just felt like I should voice my concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
I'll just add that I think that the buttresses are kind of unnecessary and confusing. And I have a similar concern about the pointed or Gothic arches on that facade, that maybe they could be rounded or square. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So, so there is some disagreement at the table, obviously. So if you're, so who would vote no at this point with this design?
No with conditions, right?
Well, if we deny the application, there wouldn't be any
Okay,
conditions.
so it's only approval with conditions.
Yeah, be approval with the conditions.
I guess the question would, I think making a motion and then getting a vote would be probably the best way to move forward,
Yeah.
because I don't know if I heard, except
Yeah,
for
I
maybe
didn't-
from Nick.
I didn't hear a whole lot. Yeah, that's true. We can give it a shot. Is somebody willing to make the motion and see where we land? And as far as the conditions, when you, if you list the conditions, we need to add egress, the materialities of the egress.
Or if there's other conditions.
Or if there's
Like-
other conditions, yeah. Anybody want to give it a shot?
I'm reluctant
can't
to
do
do
it.
it because I was so wishy-washy. How do I?
That's not like you, Nick.
Yeah.
That's really not like you.
I think I'm still waffling a little bit. I mean, hearing from you all about your concerns definitely raised them up for me again. I mean, in some ways, I feel like the south elevation with the, there's still pointed windows, but you have the spandrels and it's just more successful in differentiating between this addition and the historic church. So I don't know,
Well, I think Brittany's idea was probably the best. If we could
have a
get
motion.
to have a motion and then see where we land with the voting. I have no idea where we're gonna land.
What was the condition with the egress window?
Well,
was-
the materiality, correct?
I will just need information on the window and the window well, so if that could be added to the condition.
The egress window on the south side of the parish hall.
Yes.
So the conditions, you were in favor of the height, right, of being above what zoning allowed.
Staff are supportive
Staff
of
are supportive of that.
this project as presented with clarification on the fence height, the egress window, and then the alteration to this door that is on the West 7th Avenue. And the administrative adjustment for the additional height.
Somebody wanna give it a shot?
Sure.
George, go for it.
I'm shameless. Madam Chair, I move to approve with conditions application 2024 COA 377 for the rear addition at 678 King Street per design guidelines 3.3, 3.8 through 3.8, 5.2, 5.6 through 5.8, and 5.18. Character defining features for the 7th Avenue Congregational United Church of Christ, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. Infill the historic door opening with a window that fits the opening size. And 2, clarify the fence height as either 5 or 6 feet. And 3, provide additional detail to the egress window on the south side of the building. I also move the Landmark Preservation Commission find that conforming with the zoning standard for the height in the rear 35% of the zone lot would have an adverse effect on the historic character of the individual landmark. 291 7th Avenue Congregational Church of Christ for the proposed addition per section 12.4.5.2B of the Denver zoning code.
George, thank you very much. Do I hear a second?
Come on, everybody.
I'll second.
Eric
you
is
lead
going to
it.
second it. All right, then let's,
Are there any amendments?
any amendments, any friendly amendments? that
Okay.
Anybody wishes to make?
Now we can.
Okay, all right, all right. Then let's take a vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Can
I'll
I
say-
get, let me get, can I
Can I
get
get
a
a hand
hand? Yeah,
raise?
let's do a hand raise. All in favor, aye? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it does pass. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
And I'm sorry, opposed, nay.
Opposed, nay?
Nay, I
Nick
might
is-
as well
Nick's
go on
opposed.
record
That's totally
with my
okay.
views.
Okay.
That's totally okay. All right, so it has been approved with conditions and the architect and the project managers will work with Brittany on the conditions. All right, so before we go to our discussion, we have no business items. Before we go to discussion items, I think we should take a short break and then say goodbye to Eric.
And discuss.
So for those of you joining us virtually, we're gonna take about a 5-minute break. Thanks. If anybody is out there joining us virtually, we are going to begin our meeting, get on with the discussion item process. These are informational items or items for the commission to discuss without action. The chair will announce the discussion items on the agenda. Staff will introduce the informational item or item for discussion. And the chair will allow public comment. Whoops, sorry. The chair will allow public comment if applicable. If the public comment is warranted, you will have up to 2 minutes to provide comment. The commission will discuss amongst themselves and with staff. No actions or votes will be taken on discussion items. So our first discussion item is from Brittany, and it is the Civic Center Next 100. It's the master plan update.
I actually don't have anything to present on this. I'm
Okay.
gonna let the applicants take it away. So if Taylor could start moving them over. It's a bunch of them. Jenna, Angela.
I must have
And-
not scrolled down far enough on your thing.
Yeah, and you've given them 12 to 15 minutes.
They would like 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so that's more than the usual 10, but because of the topic, we're giving 12 to 15 minutes.
Can everybody who needs to speak, please raise your hand? Easier than trying to find.
Yeah.
All right, should I get started, Brittany?
Hi, yeah, absolutely, please do.
Great.
And please start with your name and your address for our records.
Yes, my name is Jenna Harris. I am the Downtown Parks Program Manager at the City and County of Denver. Our address is 101 West Colfax, Denver, Colorado 80202. Thank you so much for having us here today to discuss the updates for the Civic Center Next 100 project. I'm also joined by my colleagues from both Denver Parks and Recreation as well as Dottie, alongside our amazing design team and the Civic Center Conservancy, who are partners on this project. Next slide, please. So back one more, please. Thank you. We are here today to reintroduce to the Denver Landmark Commission the Next 100 project. We last presented to the Landmark Commission in fall of 2021 as we are wrapping up the community engagement and concept design phase. Since then, we've hired a new design team to work on the phase 1 and 2 implementation project. We will also review the historic context of Civic Center Park, Denver's first National Historic Landmark, and review the relevant design guidance that forms the basis of our design. Lastly, we're thrilled to show you the initial park framework plan, which takes the community and stakeholder feedback that we received in the Next 100 effort and refines the design program as outlined in the plan. We will do our best to move swiftly, but what you're seeing is really a consolidation of multiple years of planning and design. Next slide. So this is a very high-level schedule. Today, we are joining you to reintroduce the project through a discussion item before presenting the updated design to the public this fall. We're also planning for a phase 1 and phase 2 landmark review this fall as well. As our current schedule shows, we will be wrapping up design in Q2 2025, with construction anticipated to start in September 25, pending landmark approval. Next slide. As I mentioned, the Next 100 effort was an extensive community and stakeholder engagement effort that was led by Parks to outline key programmatic elements and vision goals for the next 100 years of the park in 4 key areas. A few images from the Next 100 plan are shown here. The desire for more events and performances in the historic Greek theater alongside the historic guidance led us to consider a new architectural element at the Greek theater. However, we recognize that the design that we showed in that plan fell short. You will see today an updated canopy form that complements rather than overcomes the historic Greek theater. Next slide. I already mentioned the extensive community engagement process that we went through, but just wanted to note that the engagement has continued into the current phase. We've worked extensively with events and performance focus groups, disability rights advocates, and a historic advisory committee that included members from CPD Landmark, the State SHPO office, the National Park Service, and Historic Denver, who have commented and reviewed the design you'll see today. We are working towards the anticipated public meeting this fall to share the updated designs with the public. Next slide. And while the Next 100 plan includes designs for the 4 key areas within the park, today's design really focuses on the areas around the Greek Theater and Central Promenade. Next slide. We've hired a world-class team of local and national experts led by Studio Gang based in Chicago as the lead architect, Olin, our lead landscape architect based in Philadelphia, as well as local experts Studio Trope and Mendes Bishop. And I'll now hand the presentation over to Angela from Studio Gang.
Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for having us. I'm going to do a quick introduction just of our goals of the project before turning it over to Tina, who will describe a little bit of the historical context that we know we need to comply with, and then I will do an overview of the framework plan. So first off, in the next slide, we've done a lot of research and we love some of these old images. We just recognize the Greek theater as an inside of the park as having such a civic and cultural tradition. Next slide. And as well, of course, we understand it to be a place of gathering, protest, and celebration. Next slide. That has continued into the present day. Next slide. In visiting the park, and I'm sure you have all been there, though, we do recognize that it is underactivated on a daily basis. So when there isn't a big event happening, we'd like for this park plan to be an opportunity to bring more people to the park on a regular basis. Next slide. So our goals. Starting first, of course, we understand the historic integrity of the Greek theater itself, as well as several other elements in the park. And at the same time, we have been asked to create a re-envisioning that has a little bit of boldness that is going to bring people to the park and help to make it a premier destination. In addition, there are several accessibility challenges within the park and the Greek theater itself, and those are paramount for us to solve. So keeping those goals in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Tina for a moment to talk about the historical context.
Thank you, Angela. Tina Bishop with Mendes Bishop, 1525 Raleigh Street in Denver. Next slide. I'm going to talk just briefly about the importance of Civic Center as an architecturally and historically significant space Early key design, as many of you know, is from the early 1900s, beginning with some of the work of the Olmsteds, and really also the work mostly pronounced by the 1918 Edward Bennett Plan. That Edward Bennett Plan has really been really the guiding force behind the Civic Center. Moving forward into the 20th century, 21st century, we have a number of guiding documents that guide planning and design for the future of this important space. Next slide. The 1918 Bennett Plan really creates a framework for this park and for the space, and you'll see that referenced a bit when we move forward into some of the design proposals that you'll see today. There's two really key factors as far as landmark districts go. Of course, probably most important and most relevant to this body is the Denver Landmark District for the Civic Center. While that landmark district doesn't actually have a designated period of significance, the 2009 design guidelines set a period of significance of 1909 to 1979. As Jenna mentioned earlier, Denver Civic Center is also an important part within the National Historic Landmark, and that period of significance is between 1890 and 1935. Next slide. As I mentioned, many of the guiding documents, those that you guys are all familiar with, and most importantly familiar with in reviewing the design moving forward, are those that were prepared in 2005, which includes the master plan, and then of course, most importantly, the design guidelines from 2009. Master plan was 2005. Also important to the process is the NHL and that designation, and the review of the guidance from the Secretary of Interior standards as well. Next slide. A couple of key elements from the design guidelines is that the treatment approach moving forward for Civic Center is a rehabilitation. We're going to share with you a couple of areas from the design guidelines that do allow for modifications and new elements. Next slide. This color-coded plan illustrates when many of the features within the park were built or modified. What I'm going to focus on mainly are some of the modifications that are called out as being areas that allow new elements. One of those key areas is the bowl of the amphitheater itself at the Greek Theater that had been modified in 2004. Another component is the central promenade that was modified in 1991. The pattern of the brick pattern within the promenade itself really was built within that time frame. All of these really just reference setting up the design for the next phase, and I'll hand it back to Angela.
Thanks, Tina. So I'm going to go over with you our framework plan and some of the considerations, both good and bad, I think that we looked at in creating our framework plan. So next slide. First is, as Tina mentioned, we've spent some time looking at this 1918 Bennett Plan. One of the things that stood out to us is how strong that east-west civic axis was, but on the other hand, the north-south axis was a little bookended. Next slide. And today, that the region has grown in a really great way. You have the downtown business district to the north, as well as the cultural complex to the south. So one of the goals of the project, therefore, is to actually strengthen to make equal that north-south axis. Next slide. At the same time, some of the elements that we're trying to overcome here are related to accessibility. So along that north-south axis, as well as, to be honest, the east-west axis, there are just a lot of stairs in the park. And so those X's represent moments when somebody who might be in a wheelchair is going to have to stop and turn around and kind of can't complete their journey. So that's one of the things that we've tried to fix in our framework plan. Next slide. Another observation is really that despite this being such an important park, that the park really still lacks an identifiable kind of grand entry. You slip in a way through the sides of the park. And so part of this project, the Greek Theater, is located at such an important moment on that east north-south axis. And it's really, really the entry point when you're coming from that thoroughfare in the cultural complex. Next slide. However, currently the way that the theater works and where the stage is for events, that moment coming from that thoroughfare in the south is really an obstacle. It's taken up by back of house functions, which is shown in the blue color here. Next slide. And what we looked at a little bit is when you go back to that Bennett plan, there are some elements there that have over time, as Tina mentioned, really have disappeared. And we wanted to highlight some of those here because some of these elements we would like to bring back. So one are those habitable garden rooms. So those areas still exist, but sort of not in their in the form so clearly as was shown here. As well, importantly, I think that the pedestrian circulation had two flanking paths on the east and west side of that promenade, as well as connectors back to the promenade in front of the Greek Theater. And we think that that pedestrian pathway sort of matrix was really important to this plan, and we would like to bring that back as an opportunity. And then lastly, on the southwest corner, there was just more division via these pedestrian pathways, so that it wasn't such a just an expanse of lawn the way that it is now. Next slide. So the other big observation that we made is that the promenade is such a central moment in the park. Obviously, there are many activities that happen on it, vehicles, pedestrians, great events, food trucks, etc. Next slide. But that really puts a lot of pressure, if you will, on that promenade. So all of these events and many other pieces of program that we'd like to bring to the park really only have that place to exist and to function. Next slide. So our framework plan attempts to find other places within the park where we can move some of these programs and allow for a pedestrian experience that navigates through the park to those separate areas. So what you're seeing here is that framework plan, and we're very excited in phase 1 and 2 to share more of the materiality and form and detail associated with it. But just to say, you know, on the north side, there's a couple of plazas, 7 and 8. Number 6 there is a dedicated food truck area. Number 9, those are dedicated gardens that don't interfere with the circulation up the middle. And then, of course, sort of on the lower end, number 1 is that important gateway from the south, which we're calling the South Plaza. And then number 2 is really the theater itself. And so I'd like to focus for a moment on 1 and 2, the theater and South Plaza. Next slide. Next 2 slides, really. So in looking at this Greek Theater, of course, we have been contemplating how can we add a contemporary canopy, which is needed to make a contemporary stage function from a technical perspective, while also preserving the historic integrity of the theater, the look and feel of it. And it's no small, easy task really to combine those two aspirations. Next slide. So you've seen these were this was the iteration that came from the original Next 100 plans. And you know, I understand why they did this, because it is solving for those theatrical needs and the shade of the audience. But obviously, in our opinion, it was pretty damaging, if you will, to the presence and the stature of the Greek Theater itself. Next slide. So what we thought is we were, you know, because the theater is there and because the stage is where it is and it needs this canopy above it. Next slide. We thought, what about if we were to just think a little bit outside of the box and move the performance area to the north. So in other words, move it away from the structure itself. And this does a couple of things. One is that it allows that entrance from the south, next slide, to become a thoroughfare. So I've reoriented you here, but south is to your right. And so it allows for that flow of pedestrian traffic to really enter through the Greek theater, or this gateway, the gateway of the proscenium. And as well, then we'll connect up to a network of paths that will take you to the promenade in an accessible way, and then further on into the park via those flanking loop paths. Next slide. Moving the stage also allows for our friends at the Parks Department to offer various programming. It brings the stage itself a little bit closer to the promenade so that you can activate that promenade on a daily basis, as well as to play towards the theater itself. And perhaps most importantly for this group, next slide, it allows us to put a canopy into the park in a way that does not attach to the Greek theater. It complements the theater, it frames the theater, but it actually does not engage directly upon the theater nor over the theater. So the look and feel of this, the size of it even, is really still in an early stage of development, but we're excited to think about it with a little bit more freedom that doesn't come up against the importance of the Greek theater in a way that was very difficult to solve. Next slides. And then moving towards the South Plaza, this also is still under development, but this is a, sorry, go to the next slide. This is a model photo that just is an image of that South Plaza coming from the cultural complex. Next slide. And we really envision this as a gateway. We want this to be a nice plaza. We have been given a grant to do a Gang of 19 commemoration on that plaza. So this is an early vision piece of what that might be. We are not sure about exactly how that will play out, but we imagine there could be a nice inscription, some stone walls, some shaded areas. Next slide. And really celebrate the Gang of 19 event, and mark that as well as a really important entrance into the Civic Center Park. So that's the end of the sort of design portion, and we're happy to take questions and listen to discussion, but we're really excited to bring this forward in the next phase.
Great, thanks Angela and everybody else. Okay, commissioners, what are your thoughts? Do you have any questions before we deliberate amongst ourselves? Any questions for the presenters?
Angela, how will the reoriented theater function? If there are support spaces now for the existing performance space, where will they be for the new space? And then go ahead.
There's an area on the southeast side. It's a corner that currently is fairly underutilized, but that would have direct access to that stage. So that's where we're gonna consider all of those temporary, as well as sort of during the performance elements like tents and things like that they'll need.
And then, it's great how it's transparent. But from a functional standpoint and from a security standpoint, how does back of stage work when there is a performance? Because it looks like you can see right through it.
Do you mean the canopy itself?
No, as you're looking from north to south, behind the stage, toward the grand entrance that you're now repurposing the Greek theater for, you have a rendering that shows that it's completely level topographically and transparent. I don't see it yet.
You mean there's not a backdrop to it?
Yeah, right there.
Yes. Well, that is one of the things that we love about it. I think on a daily basis, this would be the way that you would perceive it as something very transparent and integrated into the park, with that visibility all the way through to the cultural complex during a performance if needed, and some I think some events would want it and some wouldn't. There is permanent rigging planned for that canopy, so it's structurally going to support hang points, which will either be there'll be a permanent probably system of technical equipment, but as well hang points, so that when big shows come in, if they wanted to put a backdrop there or a big screen or something, whatever their performance required, that capability would be available to them.
I see, thank you.
So the canopy structure is not permanent, or it is permanent?
The canopy itself is permanent. What isn't permanent would be the rigging, so those sort of big trusses you see at event performances. So on a daily basis, this is what you would see, but it would have the capability to hang some pretty major pieces of equipment for a big show.
Other questions?
I think it's pretty creative.
Thank you.
And we will review the stage structure, everything through a two-step process similar to the stage at Red Rocks. We just wanted to reintroduce the project to you as we have new commissioners. Welcome. And there was some shifting of what you previously saw with the
Oh, for sure.
over
Definitely.
the
Definitely. Okay, anything else for, any questions? Okay, cool. You know, Taylor, do we have anybody in the public? Could you take a look, see if anybody might be interested in making a public comment? If you're interested in making a public comment, you can raise your hand. It does not look like we have anybody that's with us that would like to do so. All right, then that's great, everybody. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll see you this
Absolutely.
fall.
We will see you soon. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
All right. All right. So let's move on to our last item for the day, and this is the designation customer guide and designation application, and Becca is our staff person in charge of that.
Good afternoon, commissioners. We're just gonna go through the final discussion item rather quickly since most of you saw this last week, but just want to give everyone a background. So the discussion item before you today is the designation customer guide and an updated designation application. The commission previously saw the designation customer guide and application on our July 9th meeting. Based on commission feedback, we've made a few changes to the application and guide. And if any commissioners have additional comments or questions, we would welcome them now so that we can get this all buttoned up. So just a little background for our new commissioners. The requirements to become a Denver landmark are found in Chapter 30 of the Denver Revised Municipal Code. Denver is unique in the country for requiring a property to meet 3 out of 10 significance criteria. Many of their cities follow the National Register requirements and require the property to only meet 1 out of 4 criteria. As a result of this requirement, Denver Landmarks are known, especially amongst city council and other people, to have a depth to their stories, and as they have significance in many different areas. But this also comes with the hard thing of people having a hard time writing our designation applications. When you require that depth of story and you try to write our designation applications without a master's in historic preservation, it can be somewhat difficult. And this standard has been our standard for many years, and we continually reevaluate our ordinance and program to ensure that we're encouraging equity and diversity in our designations. And this included doing so in 2018 and 19 when we convened an ordinance task force to review our ordinance. You can see some of the goals of the ordinance up here, and the project we're bringing forward today is particularly concerned with the goals that are folded, trying to ensure we have a very broad depth of projects that are coming forward for designation, and that they're representing the entire city. Of course, this also means that we're trying to balance these requirements, public capacity and consultant time. You know, a lot of people do opt to have consultants, but they have limited time and limited budgets. So, and then, you know, balancing what the city council expects to see from a designation, what you all expect to see from a designation, and then what our design review colleagues need from that designation application to make good determinations as they move forward. So based on the conversation that we had at the July 9th meeting, it was pretty overwhelmingly positive feedback, but we had some great comments from Erica, especially about how we define contributing, non-contributing additions and alterations to individual buildings. She suggested, and it seemed like the commission agreed, that perhaps having to list out those features as contributing or non-contributing was maybe a little too overly prescriptive. And so instead, she suggested that we remove that section of features from our resource table and from the application, and instead have a list of alterations and the date they were constructed. And this would give future commissions a chance to weigh in on whether those alterations were contributing or not contributing, without saying right at the moment that it was designated that this was the case. So based on that feedback, we did change this table and then some of the language in the designation application that directed people to where they should put that addition, those alterations. As I mentioned last time, because this isn't changing any of the requirements of what it takes to become a Denver landmark, we don't need to go through the official rulemaking policy, but we did want to bring it to you guys all, for you have fantastic feedback. And we wanted to give the public a chance to provide comment if they wanted to. So we had this at the 9th and today. So if you all have positive feedback, if you don't have anything big or say throw it out the window, we will be releasing this approximately 1 week from today. We'll send it out in our e-blast. We'll also put it on our website, share it with our preservation partners, and we have already started using this guide. As I mentioned, there's not really one like it in the country, and so it's been really helpful for showing people how to actually write a designation application, and we think it will really, really help the process. So.
Excellent, Becca, thank you very much. All right, before we go to the commissioners, do you have any questions for Becca? Taylor, let's just take a real quick look to see if there are any hands raised that would anybody from the comment. Yeah, I don't know. We're losing our crowd, so I don't think so. I bet they might have comments.
Yeah,
but,
they talked my ear off about this.
Yeah, not technically from the public. Okay, so, all right, commissioners, any comments, any general, anything for Becca?
Good work.
Yeah.
When they submit, do they have the opportunity of suggesting whether it's contributing or not contributing, and then, you know, other folks weigh in on that, or is that completely eliminated now?
No, they can still, if they'd like to say, we think, you know, this feature is non-contributing, they could say that. We're just trying to provide a little more flexibility so that they don't have to say that.
Okay.
Yeah, and generally when people write applications, they work with staff for anywhere from 6 months to a year on the application. So we're always in communication. It's just in some instances, and so say owner post designations, once they submit the application, they can't make changes. So we're just trying to be as clear as possible from the get-go, so that if they need to just submit the application, they're providing a complete and thorough application for you all to review.
As somebody who's written a bunch of applications, I think that looks great. Very helpful. Anybody else? Okay, Becca,
Thank
staff,
you.
well done you. Thank you very much. All right, there are no more discussion items.
No, I just wanted to get some feedback on this layout that
Oh.
we're testing to see
Oh.
how you liked it.
Did you think
Change
it was
is good.
exciting, George?
Really got me going, and
Yeah, it was
I could
pretty
hear
exciting.
most things, so.
Is,
that was
is
good.
there some consideration to turning the V a little bit so you're more on camera on that side, or no?
We debated it. We're really trying to open it up for the public more, so
That would put this back.
yeah, no one has their back to the public, so that's what we kind of struggled with, but we can look at it some more
No.
for sure.
I just wondered.
Yeah.
So I sat close to the screen last meeting and had a lot more difficulty today seeing the detail that was on the screen. Is it possible to see that here too?
Yeah, I mean, you could always join the meeting from your computer.
Okay.
But you would just
Okay,
have
yeah,
to be
sure.
muted and that would be the main thing.
Okay.
Not joining with
Yeah.
audio.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, I know, I hadn't thought of that. Wow. Anything else?
Just any feedback you want to give, we're
Oh,
happy
well,
to
no,
take
I
it.
think the layout works well, just
Yeah.
a
It's
little far from.
It's
the-
great because we can see these and we don't have to turn around.
Can you stand up to present? You don't have to sit in front of the computer?
We try to be in front of the computer for, so everyone can see us, even those joining virtually. We used to present from the podium, but we haven't done that in several years,
Well,
but
because of COVID, because then we were entirely on Zoom for a
Yeah.
while.
yeah, but we could look at it
I would
again.
like to
Got to know everybody's cat.
Like sometimes just staring at your computer cameras, it's difficult to present, cause you get no feedback, right? You're just
Sure.
looking at a screen. Just a thought.
Yeah, we have gotten away from that.
We can talk more about it, like, we're open to changing it up, so.
I think we need multiple camera angles and a producer.
I think so too.
And a soundtrack.
Yeah. Soundtrack.
That would be a lot of work for Taylor.
All right, okay, anything else?
That's it from us.
That's it from us. All right, nothing else for the good of the order, then I am adjourning the meeting at 3:50 PM.